We continue with our coverage on the countdown to next Wednesday's elections. Let's now look at the role unions play in influencing the voting decisions of workers. Joining us is Cosatu's Matthew Parks, Saftu spokesperson Trevor Shaku, and Amcu's Krister van Rensburg. Good evening to all of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. Good evening.
Of course, part of what sparked today's conversation, Trevor Shaku was one of your unions' decision to issue a list yesterday saying, vote for this party. Don't vote for these parties. You can vote for everyone else. Where did that come from?
Look, the Federation has not deliberated on who to vote for and not to vote for. We, of course, have a set of principles which we stick to. And those principles include that we have to look for unions that are advocating for socialism in the upcoming elections. We've got to look for parties that are not scapegoating the crisis of capitalism, of unemployment, of crime on the migrant laborers who are coming from elsewhere across Africa and even in Asia through xenophobia. We are encouraging workers to vote for organizations that are non-sexist, non-racist. We're encouraging workers to vote for parties that are not having any fiscal austerity measure as part of their manifestos. And that is very clear. So we do not have a specific party. We think that this list of a set of principles which we give to workers, workers will be able to judge on which of the parties that are on the electoral platform is actually qualifying in accordance with this particular criteria and why they should give them their vote.
Matthew Parks, your vote is not a secret.
Yeah, no, good evening. No, our vote is not a secret. We don't want to be ambiguous about it. We don't want to confuse workers. Our vote is quite clear. We're supporting the ANC. That's the mandate we have from workers, from our members, from our affiliates. And I think for us, it's critical. It's very easy to say, well, vote for whomever you think makes sense. The problem with that approach is that you'll get the chaos we see in Nelson Mandela Bay, in Gauteng, etc. And I think given our very many socioeconomic challenges, as Trevor was highlighting, unemployment, crime and corruption, struggling SOEs, etc., a weak economy, we can't afford for the coalition chaos we've seen for the past few years. We need a very stable, firm majority government. We need a government which is biased towards workers, and the only political party which has ever been with workers, whether it's in the dark days of apartheid when Cosatu was formed, whether it's in drafting a progressive constitution or labor law since '94, or whether it's been shifting government resources to invest in working class communities, the only party which ever has been with workers has been the ANC. And we know it's got many issues, we know it's got many challenges, but I think we've also seen real progress in cleansing itself and renewing itself, in getting rid of some of the rotten apples, to put it most politely. So I think that gives us hope. But I think also for us, we can't afford to waste our votes. We're going to vote for the ANC. We're campaigning for the ANC because we have a lot of issues we need to resolve. We don't have a luxury of time to resolve them. So I think for us, it's clear these other parties have no track record. The little that they do speak to, as Trevor says, is quite scary. Some have no respect for the Constitution or the rule of law, and others simply on a tangent to say, how can we collapse workers' hard-won rights? I think for us, we can't play games. We're supporting the ANC. We're going to make sure the ANC wins decisively on Wednesday.
Krister van Rensburg, you guys tried to form or start a vehicle. You thought you will carry your hopes, ambitions, aspirations, the Labour Party.
Yes. No, we didn't try. We did establish it. You must remember that the Labour Party is the result of a special National Congress resolution of the membership of Amcu. So it's not just something that was thought up in a boardroom somewhere. And the fact that we are not contesting now in 2024 is neither here nor there. We will still use this vehicle to campaign. We are actively engaging with many movements and political parties, for that matter, to discuss, the agenda that we have. And we are very positive about it. I might just add that you would know that Amcu is politically independent. So we've never told our members, we've always rejected that temptation to become like a caravan of a political party. where we tell our members to vote for a particular party. We won't do it. Even the Labour Party, you might know, we will never tell them they must vote for the Labour Party. The Labour Party was established for all trade unions in South Africa. Even Comrade Matthew can tell you that we invited all parties, all trade unions to become part of the Labour Party, and our door is still open to them to be a truly left-wing, truly working-class focused party for South Africa.
So you wouldn't even encourage them to look in a particular direction, for argument's sake?
No, we want to resist that temptation. It's very, very dangerous. I think Cosatu must take you into their confidence that their partnership with the ANC post-94 has been horrendous. They've made concessions at NEDLAC that has undermined the working class struggle to a big extent. They've made concessions about the right to strike. Following the Marikana massacre of 2012, the Labour Relations Act was amended through concessions made by Cosatu to business under the leadership of the ANC. So we will never risk that.
Trevor, I mean, isn't the reason Saftu is finding itself not really being able, to say vote for this one instead of don't vote for these ones is because of the SRWP experience, where something similar to what I think Amcu is trying to do failed dismally.
Look, the absence of a truly genuine workers' party in the electoral platform, of course, is one of the problems which, as the South African Federation of Trade Unions, are faced with. And that is the reason why we have not come to endorse any of the parties. But we have analyzed the parties, but also in accordance with the 9 principles that we've adopted at the inaugural Congress, understood that we can't just let workers march blindly into the elections, because there is, of course, a set of principles which, without even a party that is on the electoral platform, you can be able to say, workers, look for these kinds of parties. And like I've said, we are not looking for those parties that are advocating for privatization. We are not looking for those parties that have carried on or are advocating for fiscal consolidation. We're not advocating for those parties that are taking the minimum wage, such as the...
But why the inclination, though? Why even attempt? Because you've seen Cosatu's frustrations, You've seen how the SRWP, just simply couldn't work. Why are you still pursuing this formula that clearly doesn't work, that the workers are clearly rejecting?
Look,
why is it even a consideration?
Look, the trade unions are not organs of contesting state power, and we should not have any illusions.
Why attempt to influence it?
And that's where I'm coming, in fact, because we've got to have a vehicle that contests the political power, which is the state power. And that particular vehicle, in our view, would be that vehicle which begins the process of abolishing capitalism and exploitation of workers, because the trade unions are limited in their scope and, as a result, in their purpose. So because of that, it is necessary for us as working people to be able to have a party that advocates for the end to exploitation of the working people, to advocate for a socialist democracy, because we believe that under capitalist state, there will never be any resolution of these particular problems, and the crisis that emanates out of the contradictions of capitalism itself, which often, or always, actually not even often, always are held and carried by the workers on their shoulders, such as poverty, such as unemployment, such as crime. All of the crises that you can think of are shouldered by the working people. Now, if you continue to have capitalist and pro-capitalist parties that are ruling ourselves, that are in charge of the state, they will always rule in favor of the capitalist class. And the 30-year rule of the African National Congress is just the proof of that, because what has happened is that since 1995, with the adoption of the National Framework Agreement, they put this country on the road towards privatization. They a year later, adopted the gear wherein they adopted the strategies which advocated for fiscal austerity, which again advocated for privatization and the minimization of the role of the state in the economy, which have actually produced catastrophic results for the working people. So we are saying, given the landscape politically and historically, we have learned that if you have pro-capitalist parties in power, you are going to have policies that are skewed in favor of the capitalist class. So what you need is a party that advocates for workers, that is socialist in orientation, that will reject all forms of sexism, of racism, and of xenophobia. Any attempts to scapegoat the problems of this country of capitalism on the migrant workers have to be rejected. Okay, and we think that that party has to be the one that actually spearhead this particular process.
Matthew, your frustrations with your alliance partner are well documented, and the regrets that many of you have gone through, including, by the way, some of the people who are now leading Trevor's federation. Now, you continue, though, to stay in this very abusive relationship. I'm using this word because it's been used by your own comrades. What really is the point? Why stay in this relationship?
Yeah, no, thanks. So, look, I don't think abusive is the right term. I think contest is a better term. And I think we've got two choices on the table. I think one choice is, like the colleagues from Amcu and Saftu have said, sit on the sidelines, comment, lament, give vague criteria, hope it makes sense to someone, but isolate yourself from political contestation. It doesn't make sense to say, let's contest state power, but we have no idea who we're going to vote for. So what exactly are you saying? Doesn't make sense. We agree, when you enter politics, it's difficult. You have to go and contest. Political parties don't just listen to trade unions, they listen to churches, they listen to business, listen to NGOs, etc. The ANC is a contested terrain, but it's the only serious political party in this country. The rest are popcorn. They have got no history of struggle, they've got no history of delivery, no history of mass support. And it's fine, Amcu can make up stuff about Cosatu sold out, but yet they will struggle to provide you a single platform on which they can actually evidence that. Of course, it's a bit cute to say that we're forming a political party. We don't have a Congress, Labour Party. It's a bit of a strange thing. And of course, they forget to register to contest elections. But let's leave that aside. Why we support the ANC? Because the ANC has delivered many things to workers. And these are the results of struggles workers have had to fight for many years to get. From a progressive constitution, which enshrines the right to strike, the Labour Relations Act, which guarantees workers the right to form trade unions, to collective bargaining, a national minimum wage was coming into effect 4 years ago, which has raised the wages of farm workers from as little as 6 Rand an hour a decade ago to 27 Rand 58 cents today. I would have thought that Amcu would have celebrated a compensation of occupational injuries and diseases fund, which included 900,000 domestic workers last year. We would have thought they would have actually celebrated that the fact it now extends covers for PTSD, which mine workers are exposed to in horrific accidents. It covers extensive time frames to submit claims for diseases which might only appear some time after you left work as a mine worker. That would have been a useful thing to hear from Amcu, as opposed to simply throwing around vague slogans of selling out, etc., etc. But I think for us as Cosatu, we've got to do the real world. We have to make sure we push workers' issues at NEDLAC, where we managed to achieve many of them, like the Employment Equity Act, like the Occupational Health and Safety Act, like the Mine Health and Safety Act. We would assume Amcu is familiar with these ones, but also at Parliament too. We managed to get the two-part pension reforms through Parliament. You know why? Because we have an alliance with the ANC. We're able to engage an ANC Minister of Finance, an ANC chairperson, to get things through. We're able to ensure during COVID-19, when many people were sitting safely at home, lamenting about life, to make sure we release 65 billion Rand from the Unemployment Insurance Fund to assist 5.7 million workers across the private sector, including, by the way, the membership of Saftu and Amcu. So those are things we managed to achieve as Cosatu. I would struggle if you put a gun to my head to say, what exactly has been the benefit of unions like Amcu, like Saftu, whomever else, let's not pick on them too much, who have chosen to isolate themselves politically. What exactly they managed to achieve besides lamenting about life? So I think for us, yes, we don't get everything we want, but let's engage in the struggles.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts right there. We're going to continue with this conversation and wrap it up in a moment, but after this short ad break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're in conversation, of course, with Saftu, Cosatu, and Amcu, all talking about their expectations as we lead to next week's election. Krister, if I may start with you this time around, Matthew is arguing that you shouldn't isolate yourselves because of the position you've taken. Is your position out of pick? Could you not, for example, consider, say, people like the EFF whom you've worked with in places like Maragana?
Yes, now let me first react to what Matthew was saying. I think Matthew forgets that the whole idea of farm workers' wages came from Amcu, came from Marikana. The years following 2012, 2013, 2014 is when all these issues started. If we left it to Cosatu and their affiliates, we would still be getting CPI increases. It was Amcu who started 12,500. It was Amcu who started with the fight for the living wage. So I think it's very, very wrong to say that Cosatu has made any changes. In fact, Cosatu has given concessions on the right to strike. It was Cosatu who conceded to a secret ballot that made it impossible for us to go for mass meetings like we used to do. It was Cosatu who agreed to all these limitations to the right to strike. The issue of interest arbitration came from Cosatu. So they have constantly eroded the rights and the power of trade unions. Remember, Vuyo, you will remember, even the ANC, Madiba himself, admitted that the ANC is not a socialist party. It is a capitalist party. And the marriage of convenience with Cosatu and the SACP to become like caravans that can be pulled and hitched at some spaces and then left at others came from the ANC. And they've been successful in co-opting these organizations completely. In fact, the leadership of this same Cosatu will stand in line to become ministers in government. So from our side, I think our track record speaks for itself. The platinum sector, the gold sector, we've made big, big strides. We've changed the lives of people, which they haven't done. And that's why we will stick to our guns and be independent of a trade union or of a political party, especially a governing party, which is the employer in the public sector. Where have you ever heard that in your life?
Okay, who will get your vote, Trevor, assuming there's still a window of opportunity? In other words, there's someone out there who cares to listen. What will they have to say or do for them to win a vote?
Can I start?
We don't have a lot of time, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to start quick with a comment to Comrade Matthew. One is that I think what he mentions as victories are simple concessions which any liberal government can make, liberal democratic government can make. And I mean, we have also made those particular gains by winning, for instance, amendments to Section 198B. All of those things are things which you can't really be putting forward as a progress, politically, economically, for workers, in my view. And what is running away from is the resolutions which the members of Cosatu took in 2022 in their Congress, where they said that they are going to have to consider a united left front, which they would campaign for, a popular left front, which, by the way, they were reaffirming what was taken in the SACP Congress. So these comrades are actually showing their the abdication of their political responsibility in implementing those particular resolutions, and they're running away to smaller concessions which are made in the area of improving working conditions, which is not necessarily a problem. In fact, it's not even in contestation here. We're talking about the political future of this country and what is going to be happening on the 29th. They are reaffirming their support for the ANC. We're saying you can't reaffirm your support for the ANC because the ANC has actually advocated for fiscal austerity, privatization, and actually has collapsed this country. If you look throughout the state-owned enterprises, there is a demonstrable evidence showing that the ANC has run down this particular country. Okay. If you go into rule of law and order, you'll realize that the African National Congress has actually collapsed this country. We have a problem here.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap it, Trevor. Sorry. Really appreciate it, gentlemen. But thank you very much for your time this evening. Cosatu's Matthew Park, Saftu's Trevor Shaku, and Amcu's Krister van Rensburg.